Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharni Nirvishesha Sanyavari Paschacha De Satani. Hare Krishna. No translation? Do we need translation or no? Aha. Okay. Hare Krishna. So, those who were here this morning, I was speaking this morning for Srimad Bhagavatam class. I believe this class this evening will be my last class. So we'll try to somehow or other give you a little more of Srila Prabhupada. Jai Sanak Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I'm just in amazement here. You know, back when I was with Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan after they opened the temple, the next few years he would ask, how many people have come to take Darshan? And sometimes we had 50, 100, few hundred people coming into the temple to take Darshan. And Prabhupada would be very excited hearing those numbers. I'm sure he understood what was ahead, but at that time he was very pleased that this was going on. So as I sit here in this place, Srila Prabhupada's office, I'm just in total amazement of what everyone has accomplished in his name for Srila Prabhupada. He would be very happy to see that his ISKCON society is so very popular here in this country. This country which gave him so much trouble, he said in those days. Now everything's very nice. So I wanted to tell you some things about Srila Prabhupada's life here in Juhu. Again, this is all before this grand temple was here. But the creator of all the grandness, they were here already. I hear they called Radha Rasgula Bahari. They're so sweet and very full, very, very full. Prabhupada liked that. He would see that. And you can see in the deities, sometimes in some temples we've seen, sometimes they look a little thin, like they're not getting nice offerings or something. And then other times they can look quite satisfied and happy. This place was very special. It's in this place, here in the flat where Srila Prabhupada stayed. Many things happened in that flat. I told you how when I was in India, I always struggled with my health. So my god sister, she was cooking for Srila Prabhupada at that time, she got me a juicer so I could make juice, fresh juice. This was a big thing in the USA at this time, fresh juices. And of course we brought it here. Of course, eating anything raw in India for a Westerner, very, very dangerous. Even the water we would wash things in was also dangerous water. So my idea to drink fresh juices was not so intelligent, but you know, the mind's very strong. One day I was making some juice, I'm not sure what, maybe it was carrot juice or something like that. Anyway, if you've ever had a juicer experience, they're not quiet machines, you know, it's brrr. So I was happily making this juice thinking, this is going to help me. This is really going to be good. The bell rang. I went in, offered a basin, says, "What's that noise?" Prabhupada said. I said, "Oh." I said, "Prabhupada, I was making juice. Why there has to be so much noise? Why do you have to do this?" Of course, immediately I felt very bad. I said, I'll stop, Srila Prabhupada. He said, "Why are you making juice?" I said, "Well, having difficulty with my health. So I was told to have fresh juices. I offered my obeisances and I left. I didn't put the juicer back on. I hear the bell ring. I go back in the room. Prabhupada looks at me. It's okay. He said, if the juice is good for you, he said, it's okay. He said, you make the juice. It's okay. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. I didn't make any more juice. So Palika was cooking for Srila Prabhupada. It was one of the, again, times that made things easier for me. Cooking in India was not easy in these times. Not like it is now. It was a difficult process. So in India, as I said, very often there were so many of the Matajis. Prabhupada had trained up in the early days, 67, 68, Malati, Palika, Shruti-rupa, Madri, so many. They were talented, they could cook. I've seen over the years, it's not something that's so easily passed on, the ability to cook nicely. That's why Prabhupada had a cook. Even he's traveling to all his temples all around the world. He had a cook because you never knew what would happen. I mentioned this morning, the Raj Bhog offering, he didn't like it. So it was necessary he had a proper cook. When you get to this age and you're traveling around, very difficult to maintain your health. But for me, it was something that I could relax a little bit, give Prabhupada very good massage. Hour and a half rubbing Prabhupada's body. His head, what did he use on his head? What kind of oil? Sandalwood oil. Sandalwood oil is cooling. Prabhupada says you have to keep a cool head. Right? All you managers, keep a cool head. The sandalwood oil on the head is cooling. 1975, big revolution in America, women's liberation. One of their targets was Srila Prabhupada, saying women, their place was in the home, taking care of the husband, cooking nicely, taking care of the children. They always need protected. Can you imagine saying such a thing today? You don't preach like that, right? Who preaches? Women should be home. They're always protected by their husband, then by their sons. Always must be protected. Prabhupada would preach like that. In America, there's a revolution going on, women's liberation. They don't need men. Prabhupada would just shake his head. So when he came to the airport, traveling from India, maybe New York, Chicago, all of the reporters came to the airport. The reporter was a woman. The person doing the boom mic was a woman. The person managing the sound system is a woman. They were showing Prabhupada, we can do anything a man can do. No, Prabhupada arrives. Prabhupada's never at a loss for words, and he's never defensive. He was offensive. He would go what we call the offense. You know, when you have a team, you have the defense and the offense. Prabhupada was always offense, never defense. Except when he was a child. In Calcutta, coming back from a program, we're driving back to the temple. We drove past one school. Prabhupada said, I went to this school when I was a child. It was a field, pitch, football pitch. You call it a pitch, yeah, football field. Prabhupada said, we would play football. Prabhupada played football. He said, I was the goalie. I didn't like to run around. So he found the only position where you could just stand there. Prabhupada didn't like to run around, he said. So he was a defenseman at that time. That was the only time I knew he was defensive, was as a goalie. I don't know if he was good or not. He didn't elaborate. He just said, I was the goalie. So here at Juhu, one evening, I'm massaging Prabhupada. I gave him a massage before lunch. I say hour and a half because there was no specific time limit. Everything you did, Prabhupada controlled. As his servant, as his secretary. He once called his secretary in his room because he had done something without Prabhupada's permission. He said, call him. I called the secretary in. Comes in. I always go in with whoever I call just to see what's going on. You know, that was my sense gratification. Because many times Prabhupada would be chastising someone. That was fun. Because he's not chastising me, he's chastising anyone. So I called in the secretary. Prabhupada looked at him. You don't move a pin on my desk from here to here without asking me. You want to be personal servant? You have to learn how to surrender 24 hours a day. When I massaged him, sandalwood oil, huh? So these reporters, I'm going back and forth. Try to stay with me. My mind is very fickle. Going back and forth. The reporter, she says, Swami, why do you shave your head? He looked at her in her mini skirt. Why do you shave your legs? Never defensive. And if you ask a silly question, he's going to give you a silly response. In a question, generally. Why do you shave your legs? She just looked at him. He said, better you keep cool head and warm legs. And then he saw what was going on. He said to her, and she said, women in your society, they have to take this humble position, housewife, mother, like that. Don't want them to work. She knew the philosophy a little bit, what she had read in newspapers. Prabhupada looked at her. He said, 16-year-old boy can travel around the world by himself. Will you let your 16-year-old daughter travel around the world by herself? She couldn't say anything. Of course she wouldn't. Protect her daughter. And Prabhupada's disciples, we started laughing. There's a picture. You can see this series of pictures at the airport. And then there's a picture, Prabhupada and I just looking at each other, laughing and laughing. Prabhupada said, what's so funny? I said, Prabhupada, you just defeated her. That was it. One simple question. How do you let your young girl go around by herself? So, massaging, the way I was taught, you started here, then his back, then his sides, his arms, his pulling his fingers, trying to make them crack. So you massaged his head, and then he'd go, that meant now you can do the back. Then you massage the back. He said, as hard as you like, you can massage my back. I was 21-year-old man. I said, okay. This was like after 6 months. Maybe I was getting a little relaxed. I don't know. He said, as hard as you like. Prabhupada's sitting on a straw mat. I'm sitting behind him. So I thought, okay. And he's just sitting there like he's watching a video here in Juhu or something, on the beach, just sitting relaxed, like he's sitting on a chair. And I start going harder and harder. And I'm waiting for him to say, that's a good place. He never said it. And I'm getting tired, pushing him, pushing. He said, passive wrestling. You do all the work, I get all the benefit. He said like that. I got all the benefit, touching that transcendental body from the spiritual sky, I'm sure. And I need so much benefit. So then you go to the next spot, and you would massage each area till okay. So after about 8 months, I decided, you don't have to, I didn't need him to tell me to switch from one spot to the next, to the next. So for 3 days, I told you threes. You remember threes? Everything, you don't get more than 3 chances before something's going to happen. Like Lord Chaitanya says, right? Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. That's it. The emphasis is there. So I'm massaging Prabhupada. And I probably shortened the massage because I'm doing what I wanted. So I did that for 2 days. And then the 3rd day came. And I'm massaging Prabhupada's head with Mysore sandalwood oil. Most wonderful smell. That's why I took the sandalwood oil. Now, 40 years later, all I have to do is smell sandalwood oil. And I go back, rubbing Prabhupada's head, beautiful head. So the 3rd day, and I took my hands off his head. You don't massage me until you say. You massage me until I say it's okay. That was the last day I did what I thought was best. So that's what it's like with your guru. You can only do what he wants you to do. If you do anything else, if you're fortunate enough, he'll chastise you immediately. This is our process. So here in Juhu, very special, something very special happened. I told you, mosquitoes, like this big. So Mayapur and Juhu, they were some of my favorite spots because in the evening I had to massage Prabhupada in his room. No oil. You'd massage his back, massage his legs, his feet. Always his lotus feet you would massage. But there were mosquitoes everywhere. So we had a mosquito net over the bed. So here in Juhu, I had to sit on the bed, not on the floor and massage him. I had to sit in bed with him to give him a massage because I would also have to be under the mosquito net. So to me, that was my favorite thing. It was like you're in your tent with your father on a camping trip, in this little room. No one ever entered Prabhupada's bedroom except his servant. You had him all to yourself. No one else was there. If he talked, he was talking to you. So one evening I'm there under the mosquito net on his bed. And Prabhupada's lying and he said like chapati dough. One time he grabbed my legs, started massage like this, started massaging. I was massaged by Prabhupada. And there'd be mosquitoes inside. There's so many before you could even get the net down. So sometimes I'd be rubbing his back. He said, "That's all right, they're attacking." He quoted Manu Samhita. They're attacking, you can defend yourself. That's the only other time Prabhupada was defend mosquitoes. I was so happy. Once one of the mosquitoes kind of fell down, you know, you knocked them out. And it's twitching. I picked it up and put it out. Prabhupada said, "Very good." He said, "We didn't harm him." Prabhupada was so compassionate. But now I'm massaging his legs. An hour before, always had hot milk at night with a little sugar, a little bit of sugar in it. Every night. He said, "Tonight make me puffed rice." Muri, one of his favorite preparations. Muri. Puffed rice with peanuts, little salt, turmeric, asafoetida, bas. Little cucumber on the side. So he said, "Make that." He said, "I want puffed rice tonight." The night before, he had potatoes and eggplant and puris. 9 o'clock at night. Prabhupada was amazing. I can't do that. 9 o'clock at night and get up and do translating a few hours later. But that's what he said. He said, "Last night," he said, "I had difficulty translating because of the puris and sabji." He said, "So tonight make puffed rice." So see, even Srila Prabhupada considered how to eat in order to increase his service. Not just eat, and then next morning you can't move lying in bed. No, he made an adjustment that night because he was thinking of his translating work for all of us, all of our benefit. But he had puffed rice. And now I'm massaging Prabhupada's legs. Just there. And he's very quietly, he would speak. It's just him and I. And the room, there's no lights. Prabhupada didn't waste electricity. In his sitting room, just a lamp on the desk for his translating. Not big lights all around. No, just what was required to see the books. I'm massaging his legs. And he started speaking. It happened maybe over the years, maybe a dozen times he talked during the massage. Not very often. They're very special times. My mother made first-class puffed rice. He's had puffed rice for his dinner. Now he's thinking, my mother made first-class puffed rice. He described big, thick wok, the sand in the wok. He said there's a certain rice you use for making puffed rice. You get it very hot, you put the rice. He said, my mother, she was first-class cook. He said, my sister, Pishima, she was also a first-class cook. He said, my mother taught her everything. You never stop your service. If you want to experience some nectar, some ecstasy, you cannot stop your service. If you stop to experience it, it's already gone, finished. I'm always massaging. He's talking, I'm massaging. Never stop. I've experienced that sometimes. People ask to give me a massage. Someone comes in, starts talking. No, concentrate on your service every moment. Every single moment, every second, you never stop. That's devotee. Not you take breaks for everything that happens. I'm massaging. He said, I'm also first-class cook. He said, but I learned by watching. He said, just by watching my mother, I learned how to cook. And he said that about many things. I would just watch and I could learn. He would say it with pride, just by watching. He said in our neighborhood they would have big festivals. He said, and everyone would cook preparation, potluck. He called it potluck. Everyone would make a preparation, and then we would all come out, feast together. He said, my sister, little sister Pishima, she grew up from the moment she was born, she was in love with her big brother. Such a pure birth she had. He said we would fly kites on the rooftop. I would fly the kite and she would follow along. And he'd say, pray to Krishna, pray to Krishna, make the kite fly, make the wind come, pray to Krishna. He's telling me this as I'm massaging him. He's completely in his childhood. He's right there. He's experiencing it. He said, we weren't a very wealthy family. He said, but we had everything we needed. He said, my sister and I, we would run through the house, upstairs, downstairs. That's what kids do, they play. He said, and we would run through the kitchen. He said, in mango season, big basket of mangoes was in the kitchen. We didn't have to ask, he said, if we could have a mango. We could just run through the kitchen, grab a mango, he said. It was so sweet. You're sitting there. Again, who is this person talking to me? Who is he? He once told me, I remember my older sister. I was in her arms. He said, maybe I was 6 months old. Who remembers 6 months old? 6 months old, he remembers, he said, sitting in my big sister's arms. But he didn't stop. This was a very special evening. And then he said, I had a cow, a toy cow. He started talking about everything. A young boy, 4, 5, 6 years old. I don't even know. And in my head, I'm trying to imagine my wonderful spiritual master as a little boy. I can't even conceive it. But I'm trying like anything, thinking of him as a little boy. He said somehow the cow had this little line and some kind of ball on the end. He said you would squeeze it and the cow would jump. As I'm massaging, and Prabhupada, when he spoke with such emotion. If he talked about a person, he would become that person, you know. It was very exciting. He was a one-man act, one-man show. And he's talking to me. I'm massaging him thinking, he's saying all this to me. Why? Who am I to deserve this? Couldn't imagine. I'm sitting here with him. He's talking about this wonderful days. I can see he was so much loved by his father and mother. That's all he spoke about was this love. His father. Whoo. He said, my father, whatever I wanted, my father would give me. He said, one evening, he said, it was late, like 9 o'clock at night, huh? He said, I told my mother I wanted puris. He said, my mother said, no, too late. Fried, puris, fried and ghee. Too late, I'll make you muri. No, he said, I want puris. His mother said, no, too late. I'll make you puffed rice, muri. I want puris. 3 times. And he said, my father said, if he wants puris, you give him puris. And then he said, perhaps my father knew. That's all he said on that topic. Prabhupada never elaborated on his transcendental position. He was just humble servant. But he said, perhaps my father knew. I could understand what he meant. And of course, his father raised him in that way. He said how his father raised him. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that. But he said, his father, whatever he wanted, and you make my son faithful servant of Srimati Radharani. That was his father's only prayer. Mother wanted him to be a barrister. His father wanted him to be nice Vaishnava. Perhaps his father knew. We don't know. Certainly could have happened. So then he says, my father would take me to school. At one point, they had to hire someone to take him to school because he wouldn't go. Prabhupada didn't like school. He said, I didn't like going to school. They had to hire one man to bring me to make sure I went into the classroom. So he said, my father sometimes he would take me to school. He said, and we passed this store. Well, we know the one store, everybody knows about the guns. He told me that story. He saw the guns. So he demanded, I have to have a gun. His father bought them the gun. And Prabhupada had the gun. Must have been a nice metal gun. There was no plastic in those days. Or wood. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was wooden. Who knows? But he had a gun in his hand. And he had the gun. And then he said, I looked. My other hand didn't have a gun. I said to my father, I want a gun, both hands. His father said, no, no, no. Abai, no, no. I want a gun. I want a gun, another gun. 3 times. This is how he tells it. I don't make up stories, I promise, I vow before Sri Sri Radharasa Bahari, I never make up a story about Prabhupada. Then he said, I was so upset, I laid on the ground, concrete ground, and I started banging my hands and my head on the ground. We call that a tantrum. He said, I banged my head. He said, you see this scar? That's from that time. He had a scar on his head. He wanted that gun so much. Whatever Prabhupada wanted, Prabhupada got. Lucky for us. He wanted to save all of us, and he got it. So that was the guns. And then he said another day, he said back and forth we go to school. There was a shoe store, Calcutta. Of course, now this is like 1900. The British are there. The British have all, Calcutta was their crown jewel. That was the, what do you call, the capital. It was the capital. He said it was so beautiful, Calcutta. Anyway, they're walking by this store. Prabhupada said, I saw a pair of shoes. I wanted them. He said they were from England. They were leather shoes. I wanted them so much. He said, my father bought me those shoes. All this time I'm massaging Prabhupada's legs. Maybe I'm even on his feet by now, rubbing his lotus feet. Pink bottoms, soft. I'm rubbing his feet. He said, my father bought me those shoes. Every day, he said, I wore those shoes to school. Very proudly, he said, I would walk to school with those shoes on. I'm still meditating on this little Prabhupada, little mini Prabhupada walking to school. I'm trying to envision him, and I'm remembering myself as a child. And I'm just listening all this time. I don't say anything. How can you say anything? He's speaking whole Krishna book, Prabhupada book. He's going through his childhood pastimes, so that the whole world could know about them. And that's why he's telling me. Everyone should know this wonderful child devotee. And I'm thinking, I'm meditating. Prabhupada says, I walk to school. I said, Prabhupada, when you were walking to school with these shoes, would you be watching your feet as you were walking? He started laughing and laughing. He said, yes, I'd be watching my feet walking to school. He's laughing and laughing. His life was charmed. Devotee of the Lord. So many struggles he had to do his service. No more than here. But still, his life was most beautiful life. Wonderful parents, wonderful father and mother who worshiped him. Every parent, you should worship your child. Make him nice, strong, happy, devotee person. And then he stopped. I just continued to massage. Sometimes during those evening massages, I told you, very, very intimate time. I would watch Prabhupada. And same thing at night, 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night. You're there massaging. You're not allowed to stop until he says, take rest. And you can be tired as well. You're getting up 4 o'clock in the morning. Prabhupada keeps you busy all the time. Sometimes I'd actually, and sometimes I'd squeeze his legs because it looks like he's sleeping. And I want to make sure he knows I'm still here massaging him. Such is the life with Prabhupada. We're like, Prabhupada, I'm here. It's getting late. I want to take rest. I'm saying it all with my hands. He's there smiling. He knows what's going on. He knows everything in this silly boy's head. Everything. And he lie there very peacefully. Such good fortune. I have no idea why. Any of us, why do we have such good fortune? Only Prabhupada's mercy, that's all. His compassion. We talk about Vasudeva Datta. Prabhupada's saying, Prabhupada said, Vasudeva Datta, Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Thakur said, millions of times more compassionate than Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus just wanted to save his followers. Vasudeva Datta wanted to save everyone in the universe. Give me all of their sins. I'll take everything. Please, you take them all back to Godhead. That's Srila Prabhupada. He wants us all go back to Godhead. He's so kind. So these were the times in Juhu. No temple, just Prabhupada. Was there another story there? Vishaka and Juhu, did you remember? My wife has my memory nowadays. Fortunately, if someone remembers my stories, she helped me the other day. So this was life in Juhu. But I'll tell you one more very wonderful story during evening massage, and that she's already requested. I told you, 1975, Prabhupada left here, Juhu, in January, the beginning of January. He went around the world in 2 months. That's what it was like. You can't imagine what it's like. Every couple of days you're in another city, another time zone. another climate. He was transcendental. So from here, he went to Japan, Hawaii, Los Angeles, Mexico City, where he did that same Rajboga thing. Bring me the Rajbog. I thought, oh boy, somebody's going to hear it today. He knew, because Krishna would say, straighten these people out, they don't know how to feed me. Don't think it's just some marble idol up there, doesn't need to eat. No, he needs to be fed very nicely. He needs your devotion means you do everything first class. Prabhupada says he doesn't need your food, he needs your devotion. But you show your devotion by your service. How else are you going to show it? Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. No, do something. He did the same thing. It tastes like mud, this dal. Who has made these puris? They're horrible. You've got to take care very nicely. I think they're very nicely. Very Radharani. She's always looked like that, huh? So beautiful. So, after Mexico City, he went to Caracas. He went to Miami, as he called it, Miami. And then he went to Atlanta. Big. Each place he went, he sees Gaur Nitai on the altar. When he gets to Caracas, he's in tears. He went into ecstasy on the Vyasasan in Caracas, in Miami, especially in Atlanta, in Bhaktivedanta Manor, and in Mayapur. Each place, he just stopped. Prabhupada, I can't say what Prabhupada thought, but what I thought was Prabhupada saw his success. 10 years, dozen times around the world, and now he sees people chanting Hare Krishna everywhere. Prabhupada was in tears in Caracas. He said, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, they traveled very long distance to be with you. Personal. Prabhupada traveled very long distance, traveling around the world to deliver Gaur Nitai to everyone. One day after class, young lady, she had been living in the temple, but she concluded everyone in the temple was in Maya. Sometimes we think like that, some of us. This person's in Maya, this person's sleeping, this one's doing this one's doing that. Maya. So at the end of the class, Prabhupada says, any questions? It was very rare. It was Spanish speaking. Hridayananda Maharaj, he's translating the class. So Prabhupada was so merciful. Any questions? So this girl that moved out of the temple, she came to see Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, she says, I was living in the temple. She says, but so many people I see in the temple, they're in Maya. Imagine. We're shocked. Who would say such a thing? She says, I see these people in the temple, they're in Maya. Some aren't chanting their rounds and sleeping. And Prabhupada looked at her. He said, you show me the place where there's no Maya, I'll go there. We're in the land of Maya, huh? We're in the hospital part. You know, this is the hospital. But we still have Maya to overcome every moment. All the devotees started laughing. And then Prabhupada looked at her. He said, you see these devotees in the temple are in Maya because you're in Maya. He said, I see everyone here serving very, very nicely, sincerely. That's pure devotee. Everyone, Jai Srila Prabhupada. He stayed there for a week. He was going to go to Brazil, but his plans had to change. He wanted to go everywhere, put his lotus feet down. He knew they were lotus feet. I know he knew that they were lotus feet. But simultaneously, devotee feels, I'm nothing before the Supreme Lord, because we aren't. That's when you understand humility. You'll never know humility until you know Krishna. We'll always be puffed up. I'm so this, I'm so that. Until you understand Krishna is the Supreme, you won't understand what real humility is. We can understand false humility. Huh? So then he went to Miami. What time does this go till? 9 o'clock. Oh, good. I have 25 minutes more. I'll tell you more in Miami. In Miami, he stayed in a nice little cottage, beautiful property by the ocean in Miami. There's coconut palms, lots of daubs. If there's daubs, Prabhupada was very happy. When we arrived in Miami, now I had been with Prabhupada for the second time for about 8 months. I just came back from India again. I have a child, a wife and a child I haven't seen. Prabhupada could understand I wanted to leave him. I was making arrangements with this previous servant who loved India. I made arrangements. Prabhupada's headed to India. You go with him, I'll go back with my family. When he comes to the West, I'll be his servant. That was my plan. You know what they say about making plans, right? You make plans, Krishna laughs at your plans. He's the one making plans for us, if you let him. So we walk into the door of this cottage. It was the temple president's residence. And I have Prabhupada's suitcase, Prabhupada's white bag. That was his office, his white bag. And to carry it, he had to know you were trustworthy. He didn't let me carry it for about 4 or 5 months. Only his trusted secretary. And then after 4 or 5 months, he figured out, looks like he's staying. I can trust him. He can hold the white bag. No, these things were there. No automatic. Just because you have tilak, a dhoti, doesn't make you trustworthy. It means you're dressed nicely as a Vaishnava. Doesn't make you a Vaishnava. But then I could carry, I felt so happy. He's letting me carry his office, his passport's in there, Guru Dakshin's in there, his BBT bank account book is in there, everything valuable is in there. Whew. So we walk in, I close the door behind me, and Prabhupada stopped 3 steps in, and he sees a picture, a painting. Krishna, Arjun. Arjun's on the chariot. Huh? He's sitting back in the chariot. You all know that? You know that painting, that photograph, Arjun's? Prabhupada looks at me. I like this painting very much. I made a big mistake. I said, why? Instead of just saying, I like it too. I said, why, Srila Prabhupada? He said, oh. He said, here, Krishna's telling Arjun, you have to kill your friends and your family. Arjun's perplexed. And he looked at me. He said, what to speak of leaving your family? If Krishna wants, you have to kill your family. What to speak of leaving your family? He was telling me, you have no business leaving me just because you have a family. You have a little boy. This was how urgent Prabhupada's mission was. He knew, I have so many days, so many years, whatever it might be. He knew every minute he was on this planet was the most important minute you'll ever see. Pradyumna was married with children. Shyamasundar was married with children. Prabhupada never said, go check on your wife and your child. No, you have to take care of me. This is the most important thing. He knew, I'm going to be here for a few more months, a few more years, then you can have your life back. Right now, you do what's most important. He didn't tell us we had to kill our family members. Don't get the wrong idea. But if Krishna wants, you have to leave your family members for some time. It was only a few years. I'm thinking it's the most important. I have to be there. No, I didn't. Just like me going to Mangalartik was Maya. Me going to be with my family, it was Maya at that time. My business was to serve Srila Prabhupada. He trained me to do that service, huh? We see that in the temple. You might invest a couple of years, 2-3 years, train up a pujari, train up a cook, train up this. In 6 months, I don't want to do this service anymore. I'm tired of this. No! Prabhupada said the pujari should spend the rest of their life with the deities. You become their pujari for Radha Rasa Bahari, Gurnitai. The rest of your life, they'll directly take you back home, back to Godhead. But we're all restless. I have to do this, I have to do that. Gradually, that restlessness will go away just by nature. I'm 70 years old, I can hardly eat. Prabhupada said when you're young, you can't eat too much. That means you can eat and eat and eat and you digest. He said when you're old, you can't eat too little. That means you shouldn't eat very much. The body doesn't require that much and you'll stay healthier that way. So naturally your senses, they become old and tired. And you also develop a little intelligence that there's no question of enjoyment. Even at young, what to speak of 70, no question. You can enjoy anything. You're happy if you can just, as Prabhupada would say, Gopal Ban, you know Prabhupada's Gopal Ban jokes. Westerners, we didn't understand Prabhupada's jokes so much because many of them were about stool and urine. Let me complete this other thing first. I don't want to run out of time. So anyway, and Prabhupada's preaching to me, he was so aloof. I didn't know he was telling me. I always thought he was just like on the Vyasasan preaching to hundreds of people because he knew it was up to me to make a choice. He never said, you have to do this. If he knew there was potential, I wouldn't do it because that's bigger offense. If he tells you to do something, you don't do it. That's offense, big offense. If he just says something, suggests something, if you're intelligent enough to understand, then the offense isn't there. He doesn't allow you to make an offense even. He's so merciful. These points are all to understand. This is how we're supposed to act, managers in ISKCON. You have to know how to expertly fan each flame. This one little bit, this one a lot, this one not at all, you'll blow it out. You have to understand what to do. Everything he showed us was not just to show how wonderful he was, it's to show us how wonderful we're supposed to become. So when he arrived in Atlanta, that was it. He's crying, he's silent. He would get silent, tears in his eyes. And then he would open them up, chant Hare Krishna. But now he arrived in Atlanta. You have to see Gaurnatai deities in Atlanta. Ooh. Everyone, Krishna's potent. But some of them seem to give it out more readily, more easily to almost anyone. Prabhupada went, sat down on the Vyasasana. The temple room's packed, filled. People are looking in the windows, looking in the doorway, side by side. Prabhupada came and sat down. You all know that lecture? Prabhupada's 1-minute lecture. Audio is there. Atlanta, 1975. Maybe it's March 2nd or March 3rd. He sat down and he's looking, Shri Shri Gaurnatai. And that was the first time. He said, Parama Karuna Bahudwijana. He said, the two lords, they're so merciful. He's choked up already. He said they're so merciful, they're distributing love of Godhead freely. Then he said, Krishna, he's also merciful. But he says surrender. Sarvadharman Prityaja. But he said, Lord Chaitanya, he doesn't even require surrender. He couldn't say anything else. And we're all sitting there. You can't hear a person breathe. When Prabhupada would go into ecstasy, everyone would go into ecstasy. Not like Prabhupada, but seeing him, we would become ecstatic. We could understand. Prabhupada was real deal, we say. He was the genuine, pure devotee, the genuine spiritual master for everyone. So then finally he opened up his eyes, chant Hare Krishna. We didn't even move our hands in the bead bag. We didn't want to disturb him. So that was in the morning. So that evening massage, my favorite time, Prabhupada and me, his little rascal servant, massaging. And Prabhupada's sitting up in bed, and I'm massaging his legs, and he's looking, this big painting, Krishna and Balaram in the forest, Vrindavan. And you see all the cowherd boys, all the calves were there. And Prabhupada's looking at it. And for the second time, I'm massaging him. He says to me, I like the cowherd boys very much. And now I'm massaging. I know this is beyond anything you can experience. But I'm just rubbing, massaging, squeezing, doing my service. And he doesn't stop talking in a very low voice. He said every day, Krishna and Balaram, they would go into the forest with the cowherd boys and herd, he said, the calves. They were still young boys. Huh? They were only herding calves, he said, not the cows. He said, and before they left, he said, because they would go all day and play. He's speaking Krishna book. But he's speaking his reality. Prabhupada's there. I've experienced this before. I didn't tell that story here today. But this is the second time he's doing this. Second time he said, I like the cowherd boys very much. He said before they left, he said their mothers, they would make tiffins. Rice, dal, chapati. Mother Yasoda, she'd make Krishna Balaram's tiffin. Kachori, ladu, like that. He said, so then when they were there and herding, watching, taking care of the calves, then lunchtime would come. He said, and the cowherd boys, they grabbed Krishna's tiffin, took it from him. They start handing it back and forth. And finally, they just kept his tiffin. He said, and one of the cowherd boys gave Krishna their tiffin. Then everyone would take. I'm massaging. And then he said, I just want to go back to the spiritual world and eat kachori and ladu with Krishna. And then he closed his eyes, and I kept massaging and massaging. And I thought, this is what we want. This is why we're here. All these activities are so wonderful. Prabhu told me 50,000, all taking darshan, all taking prasadam, all bowing down. He said that's all anyone has to do. Their next life, guaranteed human birth. So you're doing such wonderful, wonderful service, all of you engaged in these activities here. But our goal isn't to stay here. We want to go back home, back to Godhead. Eat kachori and ladu with Krishna. That's our goal. In New Dwarka once, Prabhupada rang the bell. Unbelievable, Prabhupada was. I went into the room, offered obeisances. He's sitting behind his desk. He doesn't tell me to get anyone. He looks at me. He said, we're not so advanced that we think I want to come back life after life after life and do service. He said we have to have the desire to go back home, back to Godhead. Later on, when you're already in the spiritual world, even here, then you can think like that because you're already there. But don't be artificial. We want to go back home, back to Godhead, right? I believe that's what's on the Back to Godhead magazine. That's what's on the masthead. Back home, back to Godhead. That's our goal. That's what Prabhupada wants for all of us. This is our business. Okay. One last story. Someone reminded me of this story. I hadn't told it for years, but it's very special. I told you, being with Srila Prabhupada for all of us was difficult. Everyone will tell you. We all want another chance to do it better the next time. 100%, not 20%, 50%, 60%. No, we want 100% surrendered to Srila Prabhupada. Only fulfill his desires. So after about 8 months traveling with Srila Prabhupada, going around the world a few times, everywhere I go, every day it's a festival. You know? Like you have this festival, that festival. When you're with Prabhupada, every day is a festival in the temple room. Everyone's going crazy every day. Everyone's in ecstasy and kirtans every day. That was my experience. But I'm also committing offenses. I'm not feeling any ecstasy anymore. In fact, I'm feeling quite depressed. seeing my god brothers and god sisters, everyone ecstatic, and I'm not feeling anything inside. I'm with them, next to them. That's why it's said. A mosquito is also on the spiritual master. Doesn't mean he's getting any good association. That can happen. It happened to me. And we arrived in Los Angeles, the headquarters, world headquarters. Hundreds of devotees were there. When we would come, the plane would come down. As it's descending, the fasten your seatbelt light goes on, right? Soon as they start their descent. For Prabhupada, that meant get up and go use the bathroom. No, he'd do the opposite. And for me, it meant I have to follow him to the bathroom. And it meant every stewardess on there is going to say, sit down, sit down. And I'd go, tell him, not me. I have to follow him. And I would be difficult. I was such a nonsense. Proper servant would have said, that's my guru. You don't mess with him. I do what he wants. You don't mean anything to me. But I was get a little shy. But I'd follow Prabhupada to the bathroom. Then he went in. I opened the door. The minute he opens the door, he's got this big smile on his face. He said, when you're old, you can do anything you want. He did it when he was young. He did it his whole life. He did whatever he wanted. No one could tell him what to do. But he had that smile. When you're old, you can do anything you want. And I see it's kind of true, you know, when you're older, people just, So then he walked back to his seat, you know, the planes, and I'm right behind him. Then the plane would land. I'd get the garlands. You know, he'd be given so many garlands when he left the previous city. So he'd pick his garland, 3-4 garlands he picked, and then the rest were for his entourage. He wanted everyone to look first class, not like some beggar from the street. No, everyone should look very nice. Vaishnavas, clean, neat. And then everyone start getting off. You can hear the kirtan. There's like 5 mridungas, 10 pair of cartels, hundreds. And they're in the gate, not like today. You can't even enter the airport. Then you could go right up to the gate. This is Los Angeles. I can hear the kirtan. And the more I hear, the more upset I am. Because all I hear is other people's ecstasy. And I've got 0. And people start going out. So as people start going out, the kirtan's getting more and more exciting. Because they know one of these people's going to be Prabhupada. And Prabhupada always left personal space. You know, like they have these things. Prabhupada did that. No one within his, outside of the temple, no one got close to Srila Prabhupada. He had his own 2-meter, wall around him. So he didn't follow right behind someone. There was some space there. So as people are coming out, when they saw a space, they'd become more excited because they're thinking Prabhupada could be next. And then finally, they saw him. Everyone jumping up and down, banging on the drums, screaming Hare Krishna mantra. People are crying. Devotees are laughing and crying and jumping up and down. And I'm right behind Prabhupada. Nothing. I'm getting more upset by the minute, saying, what happened to me? Then we walk through the whole airport. I've got Prabhupada's white bag. I'm with him all the time. What's wrong with me? All through the airport. Then we get back to the temple. I got a lot of work to do. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning. I got to set everything up, get his desk ready, start lunch, make a chapati dough, get ready for the massage. But I'm just miserable. But I'm busy now, so it's better than just sitting with a idle mind. So everyone greets Prabhupada. He looks at me. Time for massage? Yes, Prabhupada. I massage his head, sandalwood oil. Then I must start massaging his back. And I'm completely broken. I did something no one would ever do. I said, Prabhupada, yes. I said, all your disciples, they have so much love for you. I said, I can see they love you so much. I said, I don't feel anything. Imagine saying that. For a person that couldn't ask him a question, I said something, this is how upset I was. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then the worst thing happened. Prabhupada didn't say anything. Obviously, I said it to him. I was hoping for a little encouragement. Maybe saying, you're fine, this will pass. Nothing. He just sat there quiet. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So then I became even more depressed. The whole massage went on. Not one word did he say to me. And I just told him, I said, I have no love for you. Imagine. Everything we do is out of love. Otherwise, we have no business being here. We're not here for money, hopefully. Then I had to go prepare his lunch, lay his clothes out, prepare the desk, cook his lunch, make his chapatis. I told you how I served him his lunch. Nothing, not one word, but I'm busy at least. I didn't give up my service. I'm still doing it, just in a very depressed mode. But I'm still doing it. But he doesn't say anything. And then he goes take a nap. Now I'm in my room. Then I hear the bell ring. And I go in the room. I offer obeisances. He looks at me. He said, do you like your service? I said, oh yes, Prabhupada, very much. He said, service is love. Service is love, he said. He said, everyone can jump up and down, dance and chant. He said, very, very nice, but service is love. He said, just do your service. Everything will be all right. Everything was lifted just like that. He made me wait and wait until he was ready. He just said, keep doing your service. Everything will be all right. That's love. Not that you sit here, I love you, I love you. We're chanting, dancing. What do you do all day long? That's how you show your love. The morning program is to give us the strength to show that love all through the day, all through the day, all through the month, all through the years. So you ever become, why am I doing? That's why you're doing. You're showing your spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, their lordships. That's how you show your love. Working very, very hard for them. Saying, please make me that I don't even have to sleep anymore. That time's not going to come. But we think like that. I just want to do service. And then everything will be all right. At the end of this life, you can go back home, back to Godhead, eat kachori and laddu with Krishna. Huh? This is our goal for all of us. Or maybe you want puris and halava, maybe you don't like kachori. Whatever you want, you can have. It's all there. I don't know if pizza is there. Maybe. I'll try. I'll try if I can. So I think we have to stop here. Or we could ask one question. One question anyone has? You all have such a wonderful leader here. I know I embarrass him when I say these things. You have such a gift, Braj Bihari Prabhu. If I could stay here, I would. But I have to go back to Vrindavan. I have to go back because I also have to do my service. Not just enjoy this marvelous place. We have to do our service, and I have some services there by the mercy of Krishna Balaram. All right. Thank you all very much. Yes, Prabhu.
Srutakirti Prabhu, thank you very much. Today you gave 2 classes. We want to hear more classes from you. So please come to Juhu again and again and give your association to everybody.
We intend to. Both my wife and I, we realize I actually have attachment. Shri Radha Rasa Bahari. I have some attachment. Somehow Prabhupada gave me that here. And I realized these places are important to me because they're all Prabhupada's tirthas, very special tirthas, not ordinary places. So we're very blessed, and with your desire, I'll definitely come back whenever you want.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And the way you are speaking, as if Prabhupada is here, and you are doing this service, and we are listening. So, very intimate, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Rasa Bahari Dham ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all.